What is a t-test? A t-test can be used in statistics to figure out if coincidences are going to happen more than a few times. Well, you know how a mean is the average of a group of data? The mean is like a snapshot of a particular group of data at one time. How can you know for sure this snapshot accurately reflects what the data will do in the future? You can't tell that from the mean because a mean is a descriptive statistic. A descriptive statistic will only tell us about the data. What you need is an inferential statistic. An inferential statistic will let us infer something about the data. A t-test can help predict the future by comparing means and finding the differences between those means to see if there is a pattern or not in the data. In a t-test, the data might look something like this. Notice that the difference is an absolute value. The difference is squared to emphasize the comparison. In a t-test, there are only two variables. In this example, the variables are Group A and Group B. The t-test compares the means of this data. The 0.03 in the last column tells us that the difference between these variables has a 3% chance of happening in the future. The data can be reliable when this number is 0.05 or below. That tells us there is a tiny chance that this was a coincidence. The sample size is how many data points are in each variable. Of course, you could perform the t-test on different sample sizes, but the usual sample size is around 20 to 30. When would you use a t-test? You would use a t-test when you have two groups of data to compare. There are three different types of t-tests to choose from. When you are testing two different groups, like our previous example, you would use an independent samples t-test. When you are testing the same group twice, you would use a paired samples t-test. When you are testing one group against a set mean, you would use a one sample t-test. A real-life example of a t-test being used in an educational study. Game developers wanted to see if a game would be as good at teaching as a lecturer would be, and they used an independent samples t-test to find out. Their two sets of variables were traditional group and game group. It was a victory for students everywhere. Well, if they like games, that is. Thank you for watching.